My family stole the $50,000 my grandfather left me for college. Years later, they came begging for forgiveness. But when I exposed them publicly, they lost all their social status and never saw my revenge coming. I'm 26 years old, work in digital marketing for a tech company, and honestly, I need to tell this story because I've been losing sleep for like 2 months since my parents tried to reappear in my life after years of silence, and my entire extended family is making me feel like the worst daughter in the world for setting boundaries with them. The thing is, they're not bad people in the traditional sense. You know what I mean? They didn't hit me or anything like that, but what they did was so calculated and so devastating that they basically stole my future and then acted like I was crazy for being angry. I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything started falling apart. I was 17 years old, in my senior year of high school, and my parents were like the perfect family from the outside. My dad, Rajesh Patel, was a corporate lawyer at a big firm, always in his expensive suits talking about his million-dollar cases, and my mom, Priya Patel, sold luxury properties and earned commissions that were literally more than what most people make in a year. We lived in a nice house in a good neighborhood. I went to private school. We had 2 new cars, vacations in Europe every summer. You know, that kind of life that people assume is perfect. But the reality was that my parents were extremely controlling about every aspect of my life, from what clothes I wore to who I could talk to, and there was always this constant pressure to be the perfect daughter they could show off to their friends. My grandfather, Vijay Patel, my dad's father, had set up a college fund for me when I was born. I never knew exactly how much was in there, but he told me it was enough to cover all of college without problems. And I remember he always said, "Study whatever you want, Maya. Don't worry about the money. That's already taken care of." He died when I was 15, and honestly, it was devastating, because he was like the only person in my family who let me be myself without judging me. After his death, my parents never mentioned the fund, and I assumed it was saved in some account waiting for me when I went to college. Everything changed in my senior year of high school. Turns out my dad was fired from the firm, something related to a conflict of interest or I don't know what. They never really explained the details to me, but basically they kicked him out and his reputation was ruined. Like 2 months later, my mom also lost her job because the real estate market collapsed in our city, and the agency where she worked closed. Suddenly, we went from having everything to having nothing, and my parents went into total panic mode. They started fighting constantly about money, screaming at each other at night about bills and debts, and I was there in my room trying to study for my final exams while listening to them destroy each other. I had been applying to colleges that year, and honestly, I was super excited because I had been accepted to several good schools. My grades were excellent. I had participated in tons of extracurricular activities, and I received a partial scholarship to a university in the nearby city, like 2 hours from home. It covered half the tuition, and the plan was to use my grandfather's fund for the rest. I remember perfectly the day I told my parents about the scholarship. I was so happy. I thought they'd be thrilled. But my mom just looked at me with this weird face and said, "We need to talk about college, Maya." That's when they told me the money from Grandpa no longer existed. My dad said, with the most serious face I've ever seen him have, "We used that money to keep the house and pay the debts. We had no choice." And I was like, "What do you mean you used it?" "That money was mine. It was for my education. My grandfather left it specifically for that." My mom started with her usual speech about how family is more important than anything, that I should be grateful to have a roof over my head, that I didn't understand how difficult things were for them. I asked them how much they had used, and my dad said, "Basically all of it. But don't worry, we'll find a way to pay for your college." Spoiler alert, they didn't. The next few months were a nightmare. My parents told me I couldn't go to the university with a partial scholarship because we didn't have money for the rest, and they started pressuring me to go to the local community college and live at home to save money. When I said no, that I was going to find a way to go to the university I wanted, my mom literally started crying and saying I was a selfish and ungrateful daughter. My dad said if I left, I was on my own, that they weren't going to help me with anything. And the thing is, at that moment, I had just turned 18. I had no savings because they had never let me work. They said my only job was to study, and I was basically trapped. But I decided I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I accepted the scholarship, got 2 part-time jobs before classes, started one at a coffee shop and another at the university library, and I left home literally the day I turned 18. My parents were furious. My mom called me crying, saying I was killing her with worry. My dad sent me a super long email about how I was making the worst mistake of my life and how I was going to fail without their support. But honestly, leaving that house was the best decision I've made in my life. The next 4 years were the hardest, but also the most liberating of my existence. I worked between 30 and 40 hours a week while taking full-time classes, slept like 4 or 5 hours a night, lived on ramen and whatever I could get for free at campus events, and basically had no social life because I had no time or money for anything. But every semester that passed and every A I got, I felt like I was proving to my parents and to myself, honestly, that I didn't need them. During all that time, they tried to contact me a couple of times, always with the same spiel of come back home, you're being ridiculous, we forgive you for leaving, as if I was the one who needed forgiveness. I cut contact with them completely in my second year of college. My mom had shown up at my apartment without warning, no idea how she got my address, and tried to force me to come back home, saying I was skinny and looked terrible and obviously couldn't take care of myself. When I told her to leave, she started screaming in the hallway that I was a horrible daughter, and my neighbors came out to see what was happening. It was super humiliating. After that, I blocked their numbers, their emails, their social media, everything. Some family members tried to be intermediaries, especially my Aunt Anjali, my mom's sister, but I made it clear to them that until my parents acknowledged what they did and returned the money they stole from me, I had nothing to talk to them about. I graduated with honors like 3 years ago, and about a month after graduation, I got an incredible job in another city, like 6 hours from where my parents lived. And the job was at a digital marketing startup that was growing fast, with good salary and benefits, and I finally felt like my life was on the right track. I moved, got a small but nice apartment, made new friends, met my boyfriend Tyler Johnson, and honestly, it was like starting over, but in the healthiest way possible. For 2 full years, I heard nothing from my parents. Zero contact, zero drama, and it was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. But then, like 3 months ago, I received a message from my mom on LinkedIn of all places. The message said something like, "Hi Maya, I know it's been years and you're probably angry with us, but your dad and I really want to reconnect with you. We've changed a lot and we'd love to see you. We have a surprise for you that we think you'll like." At first I completely ignored it, but then I started receiving messages from other family members, my Aunt Anjali, my cousin Arun from my dad's side, all saying I should give my parents a chance, that they seemed very sorry, that life is short and family is important. After like 2 weeks of constant pressure, I responded to my mom saying I appreciated that she wanted to reconnect, but I wasn't ready to see them in person, that maybe we could start with calls or video calls after establishing some clear boundaries. My mom responded super quickly saying sure, whatever I wanted, but they really preferred to give me the surprise in person. I asked what the surprise was, and she said she couldn't tell me, that I had to see it. Giant red flag, right? I told her no, not to show up in my city without my permission, and that anything they wanted to give me, they could send it or tell me by phone. That's when things got weird. Suddenly, all the family members started bombarding me with more aggressive messages, saying I was being immature, that my parents only wanted the best for me, that I should be grateful they wanted to reconnect after how I had treated them, as if I was the one who did something wrong. My Aunt Anjali called me and revealed that the surprise was a trust fund my parents had established for me, with money they had supposedly been saving for years, and that they had been in therapy trying to be better people. I was like, seriously? They expect me to believe that? After stealing my grandfather's fund, trying to control my whole life, now suddenly they're different people? I didn't believe them for a second, but the family pressure was unbearable. I decided to send them a long email establishing super clear boundaries, no visits without invitation, all communication in writing first so I could process it, respect for my decisions and my life, and a real apology for what they had done before even considering a relationship with them. My parents' response was exactly what I expected. My dad sent me a defensive email blaming me for everything, saying I had been a difficult daughter all along, that they had done the best they could in difficult circumstances, and that if I had been more understanding and less selfish, our relationship wouldn't be destroyed. My mom added her own paragraph saying she had sacrificed everything for me and that I had abandoned her when she needed me most, and that now that they wanted to make things right, I was being cruel and resentful. Not a single real apology in the entire message, just more manipulation and guilt. I responded saying that until they could take responsibility for their actions without blaming me, we weren't going to have any kind of relationship, and I blocked them again from everything. I thought that would be the end of it, but things escalated in a way that frankly scared me. Like a week later, I received a text message from an unknown number that said, "You're going to regret turning your back on your family," followed by another message that said, "We know where you live." I immediately thought of my parents but had no way to prove it. Then I discovered they had been following me on Instagram with a fake account, watching all my stories, and apparently used the background photos from my posts to identify my building and my neighborhood. My boyfriend Tyler was the one who noticed because he's more observant with those things, and he showed me how a random account with 0 followers and 0 posts had been watching literally all my stories for weeks. I made my account private and blocked the account, but the damage was already done. They already knew where I lived. The situation reached its critical point when my dad literally showed up at my building on a Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home that day, and my boyfriend was with me. We heard the doorbell, and when Tyler checked through the peephole, it was my dad standing there with an envelope in his hand. We didn't open the door, but my dad started yelling through it, "Maya, I know you're in there. I just want to talk for 5 minutes. This is ridiculous. I'm your father, and I deserve your respect." He kept knocking and yelling for like 10 minutes until a neighbor threatened to call the police, and he finally left. I was shaking. Honestly, because I couldn't believe he had gone that far. I sent them a text message from Tyler's number saying if either of them showed up at my house again without invitation, I was going to call the police immediately, and that their behavior was confirming exactly why I didn't want to have contact with them. My mom responded with a long, melodramatic message about how they just wanted to love me and take care of me, and I was rejecting their love, but they never admitted what they had done was wrong. Tyler and I decided to move to a new apartment in another neighborhood for safety, which was super stressful and expensive but necessary. We didn't tell any family members where the new place was, and I was super careful about what I posted on social media. During that time, my friend Rachel Goldman, who knew the whole story because she had also had toxic parents, publicly confronted my parents at a family gathering she had been invited to by another cousin. Apparently, she told them in front of everyone that they were abusive, manipulative, and that they had stolen my money, and my mom had a complete breakdown, crying and saying I had been lying about them. After that confrontation, several family members who had previously pressured me to reconnect with my parents started distancing themselves from them, and some even contacted me to apologize for not believing me before. My parents basically lost a lot of the respect and social standing they had in the community, especially because more people started asking questions about what had really happened with my grandfather's money and why I had cut contact so drastically. I sent them a final message like a month ago, telling them that if they continued with the harassment and stalking, I was going to proceed legally with a restraining order, and that this was their last chance to leave me alone. My mom responded with another guilt-tripping message saying that someday I was going to understand what it's like to be a parent, and I was going to regret treating them this way, and that they would always love me no matter how much damage I caused them. After that, contact stopped completely, and it's been like 5 weeks without any messages or appearances. Now I'm in therapy trying to process all of this, because honestly I feel guilty despite knowing rationally that I didn't do anything wrong. Tyler has been incredibly supportive, and I have friends who constantly remind me that setting boundaries isn't cruel, that protecting myself isn't selfish, and that I don't owe anything to people who hurt me just because they're my biological family. But the nights are difficult, and I still wake up with anxiety thinking they're going to show up again, or that they're going to find a new way to contact me. What bothers me most is that never, not even once, did they admit it was wrong to steal my college fund. They never said sorry for trying to control your life, sorry for making you feel guilty for being independent, sorry for not respecting you as a person. It was always about how I had hurt them, how I had destroyed the family, how I didn't understand how difficult things were for them. And that tells me everything I need to know about whether they really changed, or if they just wanted to regain control over my life. Last week, my Aunt Angeli sent me a message asking if I'd be willing to consider family mediation with a therapist. I told her maybe in the future, if my parents really do the internal work of recognizing their behavior and taking responsibility, but right now I need space and peace of mind. And you know what? For the first time in years, I feel like I'm really living my life on my own terms, without the constant weight of their manipulation and control. I still have bad days where I wonder if I'm being too harsh or if I should give them another chance. But then I remember everything that happened, and I realize I deserve better than that.